An industrial battery energy storage system operating on the grid is a massive concentration of chemical energy. A standard storage container holds around 500 kilowatts of power, constantly discharging into the grid and recharging from solar arrays or wind farms. These systems are highly efficient, often operating at a 97% electrical efficiency rate. But the remaining 3% of that energy is lost, and in a closed thermodynamic system, that lost energy becomes heat. At 500 kilowatts, a 3% inefficiency creates 15 kilowatts of continuous heat generation. Because this reaction is happening inside a tightly sealed steel container, that internal heat begins to compound rapidly. Lithium-ion battery cells operate under a strict physical constraint. To function safely, they must be kept within a rigid temperature window of 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. Exceeding that 30-degree threshold carries escalating physical consequences. First, the cells experience immediate capacity degradation. Then, the internal chemistry ages prematurely, cutting the lifespan of the battery in half. If the temperature continues to rise unchecked, the cells enter thermal runaway. The engineering solution to this thermal penalty is an active, deterministic dual-loop cooling architecture, commonly known as a BESS chiller. The architecture relies on two distinct continuous flow paths. A primary fluid loop cycles internally to absorb heat directly from the battery cells, while a secondary refrigeration loop captures that heat and injects it into the outside atmosphere. Without aggressive, precisely controlled thermal management, massive energy storage systems degrade rapidly under load, becoming liabilities to the grid rather than assets. To design the primary loop, we have to look closely at the internal mechanics, isolating a single active battery module within the container. The direct thermal interface between the battery and the cooling system is the cold plate. This is an extruded aluminum block sitting directly beneath or between the battery cells, engineered to pull heat away from the battery casing. The challenge is routing liquid coolant through the internal microchannels of this plate fast enough to extract that heat before the aluminum becomes saturated. This diagram shows the two primary approaches to routing fluid, a single serpentine flow path on the left and a split parallel flow path on the right. A serpentine channel forces the fluid to travel a long, winding path. By the end, it absorbs so much heat it can no longer cool the final cells, creating a hotspot and severe temperature differential. Splitting fluid into parallel channels divides the flow, meaning each path is short. The fluid enters cold, absorbs heat briefly, and exits before its temperature rises, maintaining uniform cooling. To ensure this works, thermal engineers calculate the exact mass flow rate required. They divide the total 15 kilowatt heat load by the specific heat capacity of the chosen coolant and the maximum allowable temperature difference. You cannot simply pump fluid faster to increase cooling. Thermodynamics dictates that once you reach a certain velocity, the fluid passes through the plate too quickly to conduct heat effectively, leading to sharp diminishing returns. Designing the primary loop is a delicate optimization problem. Engineers must balance the total cooling capacity of the fluid against the strict requirement for thermal uniformity across thousands of individual cells. Executing that specific mass flow rate requires selecting the correct working fluid. Pure water has excellent thermal conductivity, but an outdoor grid battery must survive winter climates. Engineers use a precise mixture of water and ethylene glycol, sacrificing a fraction of thermal transfer efficiency to guarantee critical freeze protection. But adding ethylene glycol increases the fluid's viscosity. Forcing this thicker mixture through dozens of narrow parallel microchannels creates severe physical resistance, dropping fluid pressure drastically from one end to the other. The mechanical heart required to overcome this massive system of systems is the centrifugal pump. Selecting a pump isn't about maximizing raw horsepower. This chart plots fluid flow rate against pressure drop. An upward curving line represents the system resistance curve. This curve defines the pushback from the internal piping and cold plates. We match this against the downward-sloping pump performance curve, charting the pump's ability to maintain flow. The precise intersection of these two lines dictates the operating point of the system. This single node represents the exact flow and pressure the pump will deliver. Failing to pinpoint this intersection during the design phase ensures the pump will either run dry and cavitate or fail to overcome the pressure drop, leading to uneven cooling and eventual thermal failure. Once the primary coolant completes its circuit through the batteries, it is saturated with heat. It must be chilled before it cycles back. The primary loop carries this hot coolant into a brazed plate heat exchanger. This is the physical bridge of the chiller unit, where the primary and secondary loops meet, exchange heat, but never physically mix. This pressure enthalpy diagram outlines the secondary loop, which uses a phase change refrigeration cycle to capture the heat from the primary fluid and mechanically relocate it. Inside the heat exchanger, a liquid refrigerant absorbs the thermal energy from the primary coolant. The heat causes the refrigerant to boil, vaporizing it into a low-pressure gas. To reject this heat into the outside atmosphere, the gas must be hotter than the ambient outdoor air. The system achieves this by mechanically compressing the gas, which forces its pressure and temperature to spike simultaneously. The mechanism responsible for this pressure spike is the scroll compressor. Industrial energy storage relies almost exclusively on this technology. Their interlocking spiral design provides strict capacity control and high durability, allowing them to handle the constantly fluctuating thermal loads of a dynamic power grid. The superheated, high-pressure gas then flows into the condenser. Massive fans pull ambient air across the condenser coils, rapidly drawing the heat out of the gas and ejecting it into the atmosphere. Modern BESS chillers have largely abandoned traditional fin tube designs in favor of microchannel condensers. Their flat, high-density geometry significantly reduces the overall weight of the unit and requires far less chemical refrigerant to operate effectively. Finally, the refrigerant, now a warm liquid, passes through an electronic expansion valve. This valve drops the pressure of the fluid instantly, expanding it back into a freezing vapor, ready to absorb the next cycle of heat. The secondary loop is an engineered mechanism that uses phase changes to forcefully move heat in the opposite direction of the natural temperature gradient. Binding these mechanical components together is an invisible digital layer, the system's control logic network. Before the chiller is allowed to activate, a network of strategically placed sensors takes baseline readings of fluid temperature, line pressure, and internal flow rates. The logic operates on a strict fail-safe sequence. When the battery control unit sends a thermal request, the chiller first activates the pump. Only after the sensors mechanically confirm stable fluid flow does the system allow the compressor to initiate. But perfect digital logic will fail if the underlying physical architecture is flawed. One of the most critical mechanical errors is poor manifold distribution, where the pipe splitting fluid to the battery racks is incorrectly sized. An unbalanced manifold forces the vast majority of the coolant into the closest battery modules, starving the modules at the end of the line. The first batteries freeze, while the remaining units overheat and trigger system alarms. To prevent this, thermal engineers use computational fluid dynamics, or CFD. By simulating fluid velocities and pressure drops mathematically, they resolve uneven flow distributions in software long before the first steel pipe is ever welded. Millions of dollars of premium industrial hardware, compressors, and battery cells are entirely useless without rigorously validated flow dynamics and intelligent control logic guiding them. When we zoom out, we see the fully assembled dual-loop chiller unit integrated seamlessly into the 500-kilowatt battery container. The true test of this design occurs during a sudden grid power spike, when the utility demands maximum output and the internal battery temperatures climb steeply. The system responds with a rapid, orchestrated cascade. The sensors detect the thermal load, the electronic expansion valve opens wider to allow more refrigerant, the scroll compressor ramps up its RPMs, and the battery temperature curve is aggressively flattened. The engineering achievement here is absolute control over energy state. The system successfully isolates the electrical inefficiency, converts it into a calculated thermal load, extracts it using optimized fluid dynamics, and rejects it into the atmosphere via mechanical refrigeration. Looking to the near horizon, the thermal management industry is actively prototyping direct refrigerant cooling and complete immersion cooling technologies. These systems aim to increase efficiency by bypassing the primary fluid loop entirely. Instead of using cold plates,
The battery cells are bathed directly in a non-conductive dielectric fluid, reducing thermal resistance to zero. Whether utilizing current dual-loop architectures or future immersion designs, mastering these foundational thermal engineering principles is the strict physical prerequisite for scaling massive energy storage and securing the global power grid.